Good morning and welcome to another videocast by Hendy Consulting, the specialist management consulting firm to the $120 billion FPD display industry. And today we're going to continue our thoughts on industry innovation models. And I think I've come to some conclusions that actually I like SDC's model the best, and they've been the most effective in developing industry innovations over the last decade. So I want to talk a little bit about why that is and compare the top 4 innovators and their strategies, and then imply what that might mean for the Chinese players, the Chinese top 5 that follow. So that's what we're going to do today. And this follows on a little bit of previous piece of work that I did on the innovation strategies of the Chinese, and you can look to that on YouTube if you wish. So these are the top 6 players in the display industry, and let's talk about the important ones that are going to come up today. SDC is industry number 1 revenue leader, but they're also the profit leader at $26.5 billion in 2022. LGD is the industry second player in terms of innovation at $20 billion in 2022. And then actually we're going to talk about Sharp and JDI, who actually aren't listed on this leadership board because they're smaller than that, but actually in terms of innovation, they're very high up. So this is my own internal leadership board. I call it my innovation ladder. And the green ones are the top 4, and then the ones in red are the Chinese that we're going to talk about. So I hope that's clear. And then there's 5 levels on this innovation ladder, from basically if you've got enough money and you can buy the equipment, you can get into the amorphous silicon LCD business over 5 years by getting some engineers together and the equipment, and you can give it a go. Yes, it's not easy. You need to make sure things are very clean, that things yield. But if you've got access to a technology partner and cash and enough engineers, then it can be done. Levels 2 and 3 then are standard and flex OLED, and then I reserve the highest ranks for people making innovations with oxide, TFT technology, low temp polyoxide, inkjet print, OLED, and higher level things like that. That will be level 4, and then 5, the ability to pull off fundamental ecosystems and new architectures, and for that SDC and LGD are the top 2. So in fact, what came to my mind was really that this axis is the most meaningful one in terms of looking at the range of the top 4 innovators. So the top 4 innovators, again, for me, are SDC, LGD, Sharp, and JDI, including the remnants of the engineers and technology from JOLED, which was a subsidiary of JDI. And I think I would argue that the most interesting axis is the degree of external collaboration in the innovation process. And I think SDC has the industry leading formula here. They both have open innovation teams on top of technology scouting teams, but they also have an internal equipment capability that interacts with external equipment providers. So they actually are a very capable, and probably the industry only most capable partner to develop new equipment. So if you're an equipment company and you want to validate some equipment, SDC is the first place you're going to go. Now, they are always going to cut a very tough deal. SDC is known for that. But if your equipment works with SDC, then it gets bought up by anybody else. LGD then has an open innovation competence, but they tend to prefer to work with Korean firms. So I did look at their 20F filing in the States, and for LGD, I think about 2/3 of the small companies that they've made investments in or have worked with on an equity basis are Korean, and then there are a few actually foreign ones, but not very many. And then you can really see that Sharp and JDI have taken a different model, and they both work on very high internal innovation. Now, but Sharp is a very capable company technically and always has been, and they've got quite deep R&D and competences in both LCD and actually verging into OLED, but definitely in LCD. And JDI is sort of similarly, though it's smaller in scale, has very deep pockets in terms of their R&D competences. So these to me define the most innovative. These are the top 4. And I think the axis I came to the conclusion was this combination of internal innovation capability with working with equipment suppliers, with working with external material parties, and being able to pull it all together. That's probably the important point, the ability to bring it all together. That's what defines SDC as being a leader. So then here are the 4, excuse me, the pollen is giving me a really tough time today. Here are the 4 companies again, and we can talk about SDC having recently pulled off both Flex OLED based on a collaboration model for the fine metal mask equipment, for the substrates, the polyamide substrates, for the equipment for spinning, for the TFE layers, which was Amat and Cativa. They put that whole lot together to pull off Flex OLED. And certainly you could argue that QD OLED is a similar innovation, working with their internal QD supplier, which is Hansol, but then there was quite a lot of work on equipment to do the inkjet print front plane also. So SDC has this capability to put together complete new architectures of displays by working with a combination of internal and external. And I think that then defines the industry best practice as far as I'm aware. LGD a little bit less, only because I think they've done it a little bit more shyly. Smaller number of collaborations, mostly with Korean firms, although they have some American and German investments they've made. And then the other two are entirely internal models. And, but arguably you could say that Sharp and JDI are both smaller firms that have grown much less well, are less profitable. In fact, they're both financially fairly shaky, but they do have very deep technology. So we did do a comparison on a 30-page deck of the technology strategies of the top 5 Chinese. And this was pretty much my summary. BOE's actually taken a system orientation to their R&D agenda, and I actually think that is their weakness. It may meet their 1+N+ ecosystem strategy for now, but I am not convinced that this is deep enough to drive the key technical R&D agenda that they need to move forward. China Star is most like SDC as far as I'm aware, and I love their Sunrise project, which is to make investments into ecosystem partners around them, very much like SDC, as well as they do collaborate quite strongly, and they have previously collaborated with Japan. So China Star to me is the most SDC-like, and it's always, again, why I believe they're probably the leading firm in China as far as I'm concerned in terms of innovation. HKC then is a amorphous silicon only player, but with 38 million square meters of amorphous capacity, and they are now working with JDI on eLEAP and other things, and OLED, and that's going to be a really interesting collaboration. But really, it is a cross-country agenda. Visionox then is more internal, but I would just say that they're a fast follower, a highly pragmatic, quite practical innovator, fast follower. And then Tianma, I would say, is a little bit more like JDI, again, internal innovation, but they're actually pretty good, and they have strong positions in the markets that they're in. So just again to give my summaries of those, I mean, BOE, I would like to see more pick up the SDC-like model. It's their orientation is a system cell R&D strategy, and I think that dilutes the amount of R&D they do onto hardcore display technology. And so I think for them to really be a leader and to succeed, they need to rebalance their R&D agenda. China Star, the second one, I really think is the most SDC-like and therefore going to be the most successful over the medium term. HKC is an interesting bet that they've bet on Japanese technology, and whether or not they can make this technology transfer work is really going to be the defining event for them. And then Visionox, I would say, is a fast follower, pragmatist, and Tianma is a Japan-like internal innovator, but with some real capabilities. So those are the Chinese top 5. Of all of these, my mental model now is that the SDC model is the most successful, and that China Star, by correlation, will be the most successful because it's the one that most faithfully copies the SDC model. Now, just a little bit of background about my business is Henley Consulting Limited. We're management consulting providers to the display industry, and we answer a range of different questions compared to market research companies. And so that's a different reason. We work with your team confidentially to help you succeed. And that's different from buying reports that everybody else has access to that answer questions like how big is the market or which factories are being planned. So it depends on the type of question you're asking, which type of answer that you need. And we have worked across a very large range of technologies and a range of functional assignments. But if what you remember is the previous slide, which is if you want to know how big the markets are, what the current immediate trends are on large observable markets, or what factories are being planned, then fine. Market research is your most cost-effective way of getting there. If your question is whether the technology you have is any good, how do you collaborate with the display industry? Should I invest around new factories in the display industry, and how do I mitigate the risk? And how do I increase my competitiveness in the display market against my competition, and how can I be more successful? Then that's when you want a management consulting advisor, not a market research company. And to my YouTube audience, I think this is video number 49. I hope you found it really interesting. There are 48 other videos in my back library, and if you're interested in discussions on display innovation, Chinese display innovation, the role of the leaders, value chain plays in micro LED, all sorts of topics relevant to 2023's display industry, then I'm sure you'll find a treasure trove of videos there. Please like and subscribe, and watch some more of my videos. Thank you very much.